Which golden generation in the history of international football disappointed the most? Taking their stars, their legacy, and the context of their era into account, I'm going to travel back through time and pick out the 8 greatest generations that never lifted a single trophy. And when I say not a single trophy, I mean none at all. Not even the Confederations Cup. Not even the Olympics. 8 teams. 8 generations that had everything and somehow ended up with nothing. Let's go. We start at number 8, Belgium, 2013 to present. And this one is still fresh, because this golden generation isn't even fully over yet. Look at this generation. Thibaut Courtois, Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, Eden Hazard, Toby Alderweireld, John Vertonghen, Vincent Kompany, Yuri Tielemans, and Jeremy Doku. At their peak, FIFA had Belgium ranked number 1 in the world for over 1,000 days. And what do they have to show for it? 3rd place at the 2018 World Cup. That's the highlight. That's the best this generation ever managed on the biggest stage. Now, look at the full picture. The 2014 World Cup quarterfinals, beaten by Argentina 1-0. Euro 2016, quarterfinals again, knocked out by Wales 3-1. That result was considered a massive embarrassment, and that was the period when this generation faced the most criticism. World Cup 2018, that was the moment when they truly showed their peak. Beat Brazil 2-1 in the quarters, beat Japan 3-2 after being 2-0 down in the round of 16, and then France in the semifinal. 1-0 to France, that was as close as they ever got. The Euro 2021, quarterfinals, out to Italy 2-0. 2022 World Cup group stage, didn't even make it out of the group, finishing behind Morocco and Croatia. And Euro 2024, group stage again, knocked out by France 1-0. 2 other competitions where many people believe this generation fell short. Now, the window is basically shut now. De Bruyne is 33. Lukaku is the same. Hazard retired from football in 2023. And yes, some of the leaders of that generation are still around: Courtois, Tielemans, De Bruyne, Lukaku, but it doesn't feel like the same Belgium anymore. A lot of people around the world say this generation failed, but ask Belgians and many of them see it differently. To them, this was still a winning generation. After all, this is Belgium we're talking about. That 3rd place finish at the 2018 World Cup is still celebrated there today. It was their best World Cup campaign ever, and for a country that had never been seen as a true global powerhouse, that mattered. My name is Alex, this is Football Interest, and if you're enjoying this so far, hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It takes 2 seconds and it genuinely helps the channel grow. This channel is all about international football, World Cups, and the stories that don't get told enough. Well, now number 7, Portugal, the 1960s. When people talk about Portugal's golden generations, they go straight to Figo, or they go straight to Ronaldo. But the first one came decades before either of them, and most football fans have completely forgotten it exists. This was a Portugal side built around Benfica, one of the most dominant club sides in Europe at the time. Hilario and Coluna at the back and in midfield. Jose Augusto and Simões wide. And at the center of it all, Eusebio. Born in Lourenço Marques, in Mozambique, then a Portuguese colony in southern Africa. One of the most naturally gifted forwards the game has ever seen, wearing the colors of the mother country. Their one real shot came at the 1966 World Cup in England, and for a moment, it looked like it might actually happen. Portugal were flying. They even beat Brazil 3-1 in the group stage. Then came North Korea in the quarterfinals, and they went 3-0 down. 3-0 against North Korea. Well, the whole thing looked like it was collapsing. And then Eusebio just took over. He scored 4 goals. Portugal won 5-3. Amazing. One of the greatest individual performances in World Cup history. So they made the semifinals, lost 2-1 to England at Wembley, took 3rd place. Eusebio finished as the tournament's top scorer with 9 goals. And that was the main story of Portugal's first golden generation. One tournament, one incredible run, 3rd place, and then they didn't qualify for another World Cup for 20 years. That was the generation that truly put Portugal on the football map. Now, the next golden generation, in 6th place on my ranking, England, 2001 to 2010. This one still gets brought up at dinner tables across the country, because England fans of that era genuinely believed. And looking at the squad, it wasn't completely crazy to think that way. Beckham, Gerrard, Lampard, Rooney, Michael Owen, Joe Cole, Ashley Cole, Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand, Sol Campbell, John Terry. On paper, we're talking about players who were some of the best in the world in their positions back then. Let's start with the 2002 World Cup quarterfinals, beaten by Brazil 2-1. Ronaldinho's free kick, Ronaldo's goal, and England were done. Then came Euro 2004, knocked out in the quarterfinals, lost to Portugal on penalties after drawing 0-0. We saw the rise of Rooney, shining at just 18 years old. England actually had a decent group stage, but then they had a terrible game against Portugal. And once again, another penalty shootout elimination for the English. The next major tournament, 2006 World Cup, and this was supposed to be the one. But this was a total disappointment. England looked pragmatic, slow, and honestly kind of lifeless. Sven-Göran Eriksson just couldn't find a way to make Frank Lampard and Steven Gerrard click together. Watching that team, it almost felt like they were forcing themselves to play football. Well, then in the quarterfinals, they faced Portugal again, and Rooney got sent off, which made the match even more complicated. It finished as a goalless draw after extra time, went to penalties again, and England went out the same way they always seem to. Sven-Göran Eriksson's last tournament in charge, and England had nothing to show for 5 years of his management. Steve McLaren took over the England team in 2006. Then came Euro 2008, and they didn't even qualify, didn't make it to the tournament. One of the biggest embarrassments in the history of the national team. And the 2010 World Cup in South Africa was the last gasp of the golden generation, with much of that core still in the team. But again, they were knocked out in the round of 16 by Germany 4-1. 4-1. That scoreline still stings. It was another disappointing tournament, with Fabio Capello, England's manager at the time, completely unable to get the team playing proper football. And that was it. England had world-class players. They had genuine depth. And somehow, tournament after tournament, it just fell apart at the exact moment it mattered most. Now, number 5, Portugal, 2003 to 2008. Yep, Portugal had not won, but 2 golden generations that ended without a major trophy, and neither of them won anything. Cristiano Ronaldo still in his early 20s and already terrifying. Luis Figo, one of the best players of that era. Deco pulling strings in midfield. Rui Costa, Pauleta, Ricardo Carvalho, Maniche, Simão Sabrosa. On paper, an incredibly well-balanced side. Their best chance came on home soil, Euro 2004 in Portugal. The whole country was ready, and this was the same team that had knocked out England's golden generation. And then Greece happened. Greece, a side that nobody gave a single chance to win that tournament, beat Portugal 2-0 in the opening game, and then beat them again 1-0 in the final. 1-0. Yep, Greece beat them twice. In their own country. In front of their own fans. It remains one of the biggest upsets in the history of international football. The 2006 World Cup gave them another shot, where they made the semifinal, lost 1-0 to France, Zidane's penalty, then lost the third-place match to Germany 3-1. Fourth place, managed by Luis Felipe Scolari, the coach who led Brazil to their 5th World Cup title, Portugal played a pragmatic style of football, built on strong defending and quick counterattacks with Cristiano Ronaldo and Figo. To this day, that campaign is still celebrated by the Portuguese. And then Euro 2008, quarterfinals, beaten by Germany 3-2, and that was it. This was a generation that, at times, actually played some really good football. But the big disappointment was 2004, no doubt. That was the moment when Portugal could have won their first Euro title. Years later, in 2016, they finally did it, winning their first major trophy. Next, number 4, Netherlands, 2005 to 2014. The key players from that generation. Van der Sar in goal until 2008. Stekelenburg in goal from 2010 onward. Giovanni van Bronckhorst, Mark van Bommel, Philip Cocu, Van der Vaart, Sneijder, Arjen Robben, Dirk Kuyt, Robin van Persie, Van Nistelrooy, and Huntelaar. The 2006 World Cup, the round of 16 against Portugal. The Netherlands lost 1-0, with Maniche scoring the only goal after 23 minutes. But that match became famous for something else. The Battle of Nuremberg. It was one of the most violent and chaotic games in World Cup history, with referee Valentin Ivanov showing 16 yellow cards and 4 red cards, 2 for each side. Then came the Euro 2008, knocked out in the quarterfinals by Russia 1-0 after extra time, having won their group ahead of France and Italy. A result that was considered an embarrassment for the Dutch, who were one of the favorites. And then 2010, South Africa, the World Cup final. After everything, after years of near misses and penalty shootout exits, the Netherlands were in a World Cup final against Spain. And for large parts of that game, they were right in it. Robin had a one-on-one with Casillas in extra time, and then Andres Iniesta in the 116th minute. scored the only goal of the game 1-0. Spain were world champions. Then came the Euro 2012 group stage, bottom of a group containing Germany, Portugal, and Denmark. Didn't win a single game. Another major disappointment. But to be fair, it was the group of death. And the 2014 World Cup was a different kind of Netherlands. Louis van Gaal's side was nothing like the total football romanticism of previous Dutch generations. This was pragmatic, disciplined, defensively organized. They sat deep, stayed compact, and trusted their best players to decide games. And in the group stage, that approach produced one of the most shocking results of the entire tournament. The Spain were the reigning world champions. They had just won back-to-back European championships and a World Cup, and the Netherlands beat them 5-1. The Robin van Persie's diving header, Robin running through on goal twice, that was extraordinary. 5-1 in an amazing match. They knocked out Mexico in the round of 16, then Costa Rica in the quarterfinals, but only on penalties. Costa Rica almost pulled off the upset, but Van Gaal brought on Tim Krul, the backup goalkeeper, specifically for the penalty shootout. And it worked. The Netherlands were in the semifinals. In the semifinals, Argentina beat the Netherlands 4-2 on penalties after a goalless draw. Then, the Netherlands destroyed the hosts, Brazil, 3-0 to finish in third place. Overall, it was a respectable campaign in Dutch football history. And in my opinion, Robin was the real golden player of that tournament, not Messi. The Dutch have this remarkable ability to produce extraordinary talent and then find increasingly painful ways to fall short. And as cruel as this generation's story is, it's nothing compared to what comes next. In third place, Netherlands again, 1993 to 2000. Look at the amount of talent this generation had. Dennis Bergkamp, Ronald Koeman, Patrick Kluivert, Edgar Davids, Clarence Seedorf, the De Boer twin brothers, Frank and Ronald, Mark Overmars, Jaap Stam, Rijkaard until 94, Van der Sar in goal. Really look at it. That's not just a good international team. That's a collection of players who were defining European football at club level throughout the entire decade. The 1994 World Cup in the United States was their first real shot. They made the quarterfinals, lost 2-0 to Brazil, a Brazil side that went on to win the whole thing. So you could argue the Dutch ran into the best team in the tournament. But that's also exactly what golden generations are supposed to handle. But okay, Brazil is Brazil. Euro 1996 quarterfinals out on penalties against France. Their campaign was marked by inconsistent performances and serious tension inside the squad. Off the pitch, the team became famous for the dressing room split. The atmosphere became almost impossible to manage because of tensions between the players and manager Guus Hiddink. It all culminated in midfielder Edgar Davids being sent home from the squad, along with the famous lunch photo that exposed a racial divide within the group. Then came the 1998 World Cup in France. The Netherlands were sensational. Bergkamp was at the absolute peak of his powers. That goal against Argentina in the quarterfinal, the control, the turn, the finish in the 91st minute, is still one of the greatest goals ever scored at a World Cup. They beat Argentina 1-0. They beat Yugoslavia 2-1. They made the semifinal against Brazil. And then penalties. Again, Brazil won 4-2 on penalties after a 1-1 draw. The Netherlands were out in one of the greatest World Cup matches of all time. Fourth place, beaten by Croatia 2-1 in the third place match. Then came Euro 2000, played on home soil and co-hosted with Belgium. They were magnificent in the group stage. In the quarterfinals, they demolished Yugoslavia 6-1, made the semifinal against Italy, had 2 penalties saved by Francesco Toldo, lost on penalties again, 4-1 on penalties after a 0-0 draw. That's 3 major tournaments in a row where they had a real chance. 3 exits, no title. And twice, they went out on penalties. The 1998 side in particular, with Bergkamp, Davids, Seedorf, Kluivert all at or near their peak, is one of the most talented squads to never lift a trophy in the history of international football. And to put a final full stop on the whole era, the Netherlands didn't even qualify for the 2002 World Cup. A generation that good, that talented, that close on so many occasions, and the cycle ended without them even being in the tournament. It was a real embarrassment for the tradition of Dutch football. In second place, Brazil, 1980 to 1986. Now we're in different territory, because this isn't just a golden generation that won nothing. This is arguably the most beautiful football team ever assembled, a side that people who watch them still talk about with a kind of reverence you don't hear about many teams. Not just admiration, reverence. Walder Perez in goal. Leandro and Junior at fullback, both of them capable of joining attacks like midfielders. Oscar and Luizinho at center back. Cerezo and Falcao controlling the middle of the park. Zico and Socrates, two standout attacking midfielders, and the forwards, Ader, Sargano, Rinaldo, Careca, Dynamite, Renato Gaucho after 82. Several stars and talented players, but they never managed to win a title. Let's start at Mundialito in 1981, a tournament held in Uruguay to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the first World Cup. It was a friendly tournament, but one that had official status at the time and was even recognized by FIFA. The tournament featured all the previous World Cup winners, except England, who were replaced by the Netherlands. Brazil lost the final to Uruguay 2-1. First missed opportunity. This was the first missed opportunity, but it was the tournament that put the historic 1982 team on the map. Then the 1982 World Cup in Spain. And this is the one that still haunts Brazilian football. This Brazil side didn't just want to win, they wanted to win beautifully. They played open, attacking, expressive football in every single game. They beat the Soviet Union 2-1. They beat Scotland 4-1. They beat New Zealand 4-0. And in the second round they beat Argentina 3-1. Maradona and all. They were breathtaking. Brazil were out 3-2 with that squad, in a game where a draw would have been enough to send them through. And then Italy was the other match in that second group stage. Paolo Rossi had been barely playing competitive football for 2 years after a match-fixing ban. Well, he scored a hat trick in that match against Brazil. Italy won 3-2, in one of the greatest matches of all time. Brazil were out 3-2 with that squad, in a game where a draw would have been enough to send them through. It is one of the most shocking results in World Cup history. And it wasn't because Brazil played badly. They just kept attacking, kept believing they could score one more, and Rossi kept punishing them on the counter. The next major tournament, the 1983 Copa America, they reached the final and lost. Runners-up, beaten by Uruguay in the deciding match. A result that was considered an embarrassment by the Brazilian press. And then the 1986 World Cup in Mexico. Zico was 33, carrying a knee injury. Socrates was 32. The squad was older, slower, not quite the same force. They made the quarterfinals, drew 1-1 with France, and lost 4-3 on penalties. Zico missed his penalty. The greatest generation in Brazilian football history went out on a penalty miss. Football isn't always fair, and Brazil in '82 is probably the clearest example of that you'll ever find. But as remarkable as this generation was, they're still only number 2 on this list. Because the team at number 1 did something similar. Number 1, Netherlands, 1973 to 1978. Of course it's the Dutch. And just look at the players they had in that generation. Johan Cruyff, Johan Neeskens, Rob Rensenbrink, Ruud Krol, Johnny Rep, Wim Jansen, Wim Surbier, Wim van Hanegem, Arie Haan, René van de Kerkhoff. And in goal, they had Jan Jongbloed in 1974 and Piet Schrijvers at the 1978 World Cup. This is the team that invented total football, built by Rinus Michels, the architect behind the whole philosophy. A system where every outfield player could play every position, where the shape of the game itself was fluid and constantly shifting. It was revolutionary. It changed how football was thought about, coached, and played at every level of the game. The 1974 tournament in West Germany was their moment. They were extraordinary. They beat Uruguay 2-0. They beat Bulgaria 4-1. They beat Argentina 4-0. And in the second group stage, they beat Brazil 2-0, in a match that was more battle than football. Brutal, physical, ugly at times. But the Dutch won it. And in the final against the hosts, West Germany, they scored in the second minute without a German player even touching the ball. Neeskens from the penalty spot. 1-0 before West Germany had touched it, and then they stopped. They started playing with their food, passing the ball around, being clever, almost showing off, and Germany came back. Paul Breitner equalized from the penalty spot. Gerd Müller scored the winner just before halftime. 2-1. Germany were world champions. Euro 1976. They made the third-place match, lost 3-2 to Yugoslavia. A tournament where Czechoslovakia beat West Germany on penalties in the final, and the Dutch weren't even in the conversation by the end. And then came the 1978 World Cup in Argentina. Cruyff didn't travel after his family was held at gunpoint in a robbery at their home. He made the decision to stay with them. Without their best player, the Netherlands still made the final. They still had enough. Rensenbrink hit the post in the last minute of normal time. The post. One touch away from winning the World Cup. Argentina won 3-1 after extra time. And here it is. The greatest generation in football history, led by one of the greatest geniuses the game has ever seen, that somehow failed to win a single title. Some teams probably came to your mind, and you might be wondering why I didn't include them here. Two names especially. Hungary in the 1950s and Argentina in the 2000s. Well, both were incredible generations. Hungary's mighty Magyars were probably the best side in the world for the better part of a decade. Puskás Kocsis, Hajduk, a team that beat England 6-3 at Wembley, which at the time felt like the football world had been turned upside down. And Argentina in the 2000s had Riquelme, Tevez, Messi in his early years. A generation that dominated youth football and produced some of the most gifted players on the planet. But here's why they're not on this list. Hungary won Olympic gold in 1952 and the Central European Championship, titles that carried genuine weight in an era before the European Championship existed and when the World Cup was still finding its footing. Argentina won Olympic gold in 2004 in Athens and again in 2008 in Beijing. Both generations won something. And the rule here was simple: nothing. Not even the Olympics, so they don't qualify, as brilliant as they were. So, do you agree with my list? And is there any other golden generation in international football that comes to mind but still ended up winning nothing? Drop your take in the comments, I read everything. And here's another football interest video for you to watch. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.